right, next, guardrail decision. Discussion. What do we have to do to get to the end of the trail of the guardrail discussion?
So, we had left it. Me and you had gone back with like some just changes, but we talked next steps. Next steps was going to be to meet with DPW. Because, you know, we wanted to know, the problem was still gonna be a problem. You know, we're still gonna, I don't think they've been popping up as much as, it's kind of gone onto the radar as an issue.
Well, okay.
But so, I mean, I think that's where I
Actually,
left it.
not really, because they keep showing up, and, you know, there's one on Highland that's popped up, there's one at the entrance to the middle school that's been installed, and so it hasn't.
Right, but I'm talking since,
disappeared.
the beginning of the summer when we had these discussions.
We couldn't get traction
Right.
with the planner.
I don't think we need the planner to
I don't
facilitate
think
it.
we do.
I mean, we're talking, Steve, we can meet with them, go over it with it, on like the macro scale, like what the concerns are.
Right.
What the issues are, and then go from there. If they feel like, well, we need some real guidance document, and we had talked, and I'm jumping from like the macro to more of the micro, where we talked about like flow charts. At one point, you had a very good point, because we were kind of heading in that direction. You're like, I want the flow chart that says no guardrails, right? Like, that's option one. That's the baseline condition, no guardrails. So we kind of worked the report to kind of funnel that message. My concern with like kind of from an engineering point of view of like a flow chart of like decision tree is engineers love that, and they love to enter into it and then come up with
You are here.
Yeah, which would be like, a guardrail.
Right.
So the report as it kind of reads now reinforces like that they need to be carefully planned, the dangers of just putting them in without any design or considerations for where they are. Basically, end terminals too is like another big thing. But I guess just before we kind of unmark this draft and just say, here's the final report, I thought maybe we would meet with the DPW.
Would you put together sort of the draft of the decision tree before or after that meeting with the DPW?
I'm resistant to do that because I think if you do that, it gives people a path to get to where they want.
Resistant to even showing the decision tree.
Right, and not for any other reason of just because I know engineers, they'll want to get to an end point, and you point that out, how to get there, they'll do it.
Okay.
If you guys think otherwise, we can do it, but we just love like entering into those like Candyland mazes and ending up at the ends without kind of thinking how we get there, or bigger picture issues or anything like that.
When do you want to put the decision tree together? After you meet with them?
He's saying no decision tree.
Oh, but I thought at the beginning you were arguing for a decision.
No, I'm arguing against it on the basis of engineer personalities.
I think he's saying that we'll get some
Feedback.
sort of feedback in that direction, and that we should say, we should try to head in the other direction and say.
Because you want them to consider decisions outside a decision tree? Or?
Well, no, it's because your main desire is not to have these things just popping up willy-nilly.
I see.
And
what if part of the decision tree is no guardrail? What's wrong with that?
that would be like the first one.
Yeah.
But it's pretty easy once you put these things together to jump over and say, okay, well, what's my reason for having one?
So you wind up where you want to be.
Yeah, you wind up where you want to be, and you shape your.
You wind up a galvanized guardrail.
Right, yeah, right, exactly.
I want to play devil's advocate. First of all, there are a lot of things that need to be reviewed revised in the report, which I've indicated. But also, I think that there's just a lot of stuff missing, and I think that if they simply use the information in the report, there's nothing that's going to compel them to use the one that we recommend, because there's no rational explanation for why we prefer cable guardrails, other than the fact that they look good and they're the least
And
expensive.
they're effective.
Yeah,
They
yeah,
look
of
good,
course.
they're least expensive,
Right.
they're effective.
And that's why I think.
Why would you ever use them?
Exactly. And that's why I think that we need to add things, as I suggested, like, we need to add maintenance costs and lifetimes to the various guardrail types, because just indicating what the first time costs are doesn't tell the whole picture, and they're just gonna, put bullet holes through that one. And, as I mentioned, the cost information for the cable option is sorely lackey. It's based on installations in Colorado and stuff like that. But finally, like, even the decision tree, there's nothing in there right now that talks about what type of guardrail you use for this, for below this speed limit, or for this steepness of embankment, or for whether, even basic stuff, whether it's a scenic or non-scenic road. There's nothing in that report that indicates any of that. So all we've done basically is listed, the 4 types of guardrails, how much it costs to install them, and which ones we prefer. And I just don't think that's going to fly with the DPW.
Well, any approved guardrail system meets the standard. So there's no, if there's a warrant for a guardrail, right?
Mm-hmm.
Any of the approved ASHTO guardrails meet the warrant. So, any of the ones we've talked about. So there's no, steepness of bank or things like that. So it really kind of does boil down to what we were trying to get at is, and what we, at that time, we were hearing was, these other ones aren't appropriate for other reasons. It was what, the cable wasn't allowed, but it's all over Lincoln.
All over Lincoln.
The wood was more expensive and less. I can't remember. It was like 6. The wood was slightly more expensive to install, but didn't last as long.
The long-term cost balanced out.
Right.
Yeah.
And actually, I think it was just trying to frame other solutions to the problem, which was, there's these other options. There's some other tools in the toolbox they can use. Again, I kind of was in the weeds with it a little bit, and now kind of pulled me out and said, but don't forget, no guardrail's an option too, if, that we need to reinforce that it's, just don't jump to like, we gotta put one here, remove the hazard, or is it really warranted, or, if you're gonna put one, how's it gonna be properly designed, how are you gonna do the end terminals? You just can't have a guardrail end, that's a spear.
So just let me back up for a minute. We've been asked to provide guidelines, and they are required to follow our guidelines, or?
No,
We're making recommendations. to
Making
the Board of
recommendations.
Selectmen.
I see.
The selectmen can choose, they're the board in charge
Okay.
of the roadways.
Yeah.
So they can take our recommendations and accept them, but not follow them, or follow them, or follow them sometimes.
I see.
It's their
They've
decision.
requested this from us, so they'll
Right.
probably follow them, assuming.
That's right, and we have sort of thought, the default preference for the DPW today is for galvanized
Over-engineered
highway-style
guardrails.
guardrails.
Over-engineered.
And so we came to the selectmen and we said, it makes every road in town look like it's a state highway. Is there some way we'd have a more sensitive resolution to this issue? And then we started with the idea that there might be appropriate guardrails for appropriate situations. So that in one case, maybe no guardrail would be more appropriate than just putting them everywhere you think they might be needed. Or maybe it's a wood guardrail as opposed to a galvanized metal one. Or if you really want it to disappear, maybe it's a cable guardrail. And what Steve's trying to drive at is there a recipe to give them that says, we prefer X guardrail in this kind of a circumstance and that guardrail in another?
Right, the report right now has absolutely no criteria to tell you when you have to use a wood guardrail over a cable or a steel over a wood.
Just a recommendation, yeah.
It just says, you know, which ones we prefer aesthetically.
If the default is they all work, then it
But not in
becomes-
all circumstances, right?
Depending on speed.
Some work for, maybe they do all work
Weston
under a
speed.
speed limit of 40 in this town, but I don't know that.
Yeah, I mean, generally, if they're there, they'll work when they're appropriately sited and designed. You know, sometimes like the cable's not great along curved roads, but I mean, that's kind of where we fall back to saying, like, you know, they need to properly design and sited for their use. It really is, from what I understood at the time, like, to give them other viable options, because we were hearing things like, or you guys were hearing things like, look, we can only use galvanized guardrails. So we said, okay, look, there's these other options. Well, these other options are more expensive. Oh, look, here's some cost data. They are, you know, a couple of them some are appreciably cheaper, a couple of them are like 10% more initial cost. So they're in the ballpark. You know, it's not a 25-year lifetime maintenance, and you can do that type of thing, but they're in the ballpark. You know, if one's, you know, $25 a linear foot, the other one's 28, but one's 15, you know, and you're putting in a 50-foot application, does that really matter? No. Here's the baseline. What is appropriate for the locale from an aesthetic?
How many times a year they put in new guardrails?
They've got a stockpile, but apparently quite an extensive stockpile that they got from somewhere, lots and
itching
lots
to
of
put 'em on?
galvanized guardrails.
Oh, I see.
So there's a compulsion to get those
They're
babies
out
on the
or
road.
something else?
Well, I mean, or, yeah, I mean,
But how many
if
times
the
a year
only
they
tool
put
you
it?
have is a hammer, I mean.
I mean, did they put up once every 2 months?
I think it's always a maintenance thing.
It's
So
a maintenance.
where they see a need for replacing, they put in galvanized,
Right.
whether
Oh,
it was
I
something
see,
else
I see.
previously.
For example,
The
Church,
default is
Except
galvanized.
where they really need.
Church Street, there used to be
Oh,
410, you know, self-rusting steel guardrails along the whole road.
Some
Some of those needed to be replaced, and so now what we have is a mixture
Yeah.
of galvanized highway rails
Beautiful.
and Core-10 rusted steel rails. So, what we're saying is that certain roads, maybe, you know, the DPW galvanized rails aren't objectionable. You know, we try, maybe we haven't found one of those, but.
Park Ave.
Yeah, certain roads, we would recommend that they use something else. We'd recommend they use wooden guardrails or cable guardrails or something else. So it becomes almost, is less a cost or a performance issue as an aesthetic issue.
Well, if you're saying that they all perform to the same standards, at least on our roads with our speed limits and on our embankments and in all circumstances, then we would clearly just recommend one.
Right,
You know, I would
the one you
recommend
like the most.
The one we like the most.
Just most
But I
aesthetically
didn't think,
pleasing.
I never got the impression it was that simple.
Yeah, I mean, I guess it kind of is. I mean, they all work appropriately, and they're all kind of in the same ballpark of cost, so which one do you like the best? And I wouldn't say that it's actually just, you know, I wouldn't handcuff yourself to saying it's just one unless you're worried about kind of the same thing I was with the flow chart, and that too many choices, and you're gonna end up with the choice that's already sitting in the DPW yard. You know, so that's more of like how you want to shape and present this solution to what, you know.
I think in some instances, the wooden guardrails would be great, but not necessarily in every instance. You know, I can think of situations where the cable guardrail would even be better, because, you know, it virtually disappears in the landscape.
Right, so when would you prefer wood over cable?
Well,
And cable's a lot cheaper.
that's what we have to,
It sounds like there's
Think
some
about
practical things, if there's a turn, for example.
Well, that's what I'm trying to get at, but
Yeah.
you're saying it's the
Reinforced
same no
wood
matter what.
is stronger.
Yeah, well, no, apparently they all work about the same.
But I think maybe around
I
the
mean,
bend or into a.
You know, like along Church Street, if you're driving up Church Street, you know, in my mind's eye, that would be wood. I don't know why, probably because there's a lot of trees and, you know, and then like the cable, I see, and again, it's probably just a power suggestion, but when you drive through Lincoln at Trapello Road, that's what they have. And it goes like road, cable guardrail, and then like sidewalk. And that's where the picture's from, by the way. But, you know, so that one's kind of in the open, but it disappears, you know, even because it's so, you know,
It's unobtrusive.
so unobtrusive.
So
If you
wouldn't
did
want
wood
a
there,
heavy rail there, you know, it'd be better to
Right.
leave the landscape open.
you know, if you did wood there, it would read more. But if you did,
Maybe you would, I mean, maybe you'd want it everywhere.
Yeah, I really think that it sounds like if they're all the same, essentially, a few little tweaks, they're all the same cost, essentially, a few little tweaks. We don't have a speed limit above 40 in this town, do we?
State highways.
state highways.
Okay, well, we're not talking about those.
Cable's actually a lot less expensive.
Then,
Just have to
and you
take
guys
repair
like cable,
costs.
I actually never really noticed cable, so.
That's
I
the
don't see-
idea.
So I
That's
can't
good.
weigh in on this, but
That's good.
then I think you ought to just make a decision that that's what we want.
The other issue is like replacement, most of their work is replacement, like along Miriam Street, right along that bridge.
And there was
You have a
some,
hodgepodge, I'd rather just have all steel or all something. So most of their work is replacement, they're replacing cable along the steel route. I'm sure I like that.
Right, that's when you would use one of our other recommendations.
So we need to establish standards.
Well, it still goes back to what Dave's suggesting, which is to meet with the DPW with an open mind here,
Yeah.
rather than.
Why don't, before we establish standards, just
That's
meet
fine.
and say what this is where we, kind of where we are.
and that would kind of be, nice to kind of hear
What the issue is.
and what their thoughts are on it, so we can respond.
Yeah.
You know, like, if, you know, so we can maybe better document answers to their concerns.
It's more practical.
You know, say like, look, no, you know, there's other things that you can do, and no, it's not 5 times as much, and it's not as, you know,
Right.
this, and, you know, so we can kind of apply pressure where it's, you know, being focused.
Right. Yeah, yeah.
I think traditionally it's always been the cable. The town's really done a lot of cable guardrails.
Years and years ago. I mean,
And
With the old concrete post and the cable that's all sort of falling apart.
yeah, but that was the I mean, that was what was.
Right, historically. That was-
we haven't done that in a long time. Well, if we're gonna meet with the DPW, I would at least ask that the typos
Oh, yeah.
and additions and all that stuff that I suggested be incorporated.
Yeah,
I'd
that's,
like to see that.
yeah, we would do that, and we'd have it marked draft and all that, but I think maybe, you know, doing that, giving them a copy, saying, look, we want to talk to you about your thoughts on this,
It's good.
so we can kind of flush it out a little bit more.
Yeah. John, could you
Compare.
contact Tom and Steve and see if we can find a
At night or during the day?
During the day, I think.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
Probably a Tuesday, you know, so that
Yep.
Dave doesn't have to travel over here.
Oh, I don't care, whatever.
Gotcha, okay.
Okay,
Special edition of the plan.
good. All right, so that's that.
Just you guys, right?